How's it going, my friends in tech? And so, one thing I like to do is to compare two devices that I currently have and own. And today we are comparing the Samsung Galaxy A53 and the Google Pixel 8a. And yeah, this is just, if you have an A53, is it worth upgrading to the Pixel 8a? And also, just how they'll stack against each other. But starting with the A53, it's got a 6.5-inch display with a resolution of 2400 by 1080 pixels, a 20 by 9 aspect ratio at a 405 pixels per inch, Super AMOLED display, 120 hertz refresh rate with a screen to body ratio of 85.36%. It's got a peak brightness of 800 nits and the Exynos 1285 nanometer chip. It's an octa-core processor with two 2.4 gigahertz Cortex A78s and six 2 gigahertz Cortex A55 64-bits. 6 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigs of internal storage with expandable memory via SD card up to a terabyte. It launched with Android 12, but it does have Android 14 One UI 6.1. It's got a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, fast charging at a wired charging for 25 watts, no wireless charging. The camera itself, the main camera sensor is 64 megapixels, but it's default set at 32 megapixels when you launch the camera, so you have to change that. The aperture rating is an f1.8 aperture with a focal length, 26 millimeter sensor, and the ultra wide is a 12 megapixel ultra wide with the aperture rating of f2.2, and you got a 5 megapixel macro and a 5 megapixel depth for close-up shots. All that good stuff. The front camera, the selfie cam, is a 32 megapixel in itself. So with those specs out of the way for the Galaxy A53, I will say this. The A53 has always surprised me. Specifically that Samsung continues to support this device, even though it is 2 years old. If you think about it, the device in itself came out, I want to say, like in spring of 2022. Could be wrong, but it's still a solid phone. I mean, what are the caveats to it? Well, that is, it can get a little bit jittery and janky, and that is because of the Exynos 1280. That chip, Exynos chips have been known not to be the best, which is why Samsung is trying to revamp them. But anyways, switching over to the specifications of the Google Pixel 8a, it is a 6.1-inch display with a resolution of 2400 by 1080 pixels, a 20 by 9 aspect ratio with a 431 pixels per inch, OLED display, 120 hertz refresh with a screen-to-body ratio of 81.28%. It's got 2000 nits of peak brightness, Tensor G3 at a 4-nanometer chip. With the cores in itself, there's a 3 gigahertz Cortex X3 with four 2.4 gigahertz Cortex A715, and then four 2.1 gigahertz Cortex A510s. It's got 8 gigabytes of RAM, that's LPDDR5X, 128 gigabytes of storage, but no expandable memory at all whatsoever. And the battery size is a 4492 milliamp hour battery, fast charging and Qi wireless charging, but it's only 18 watts fast charging with wired and 7.5 watts with wireless charging. For the camera setup, you have a 64 megapixel sensor that stays default when you launch the camera itself. It's a f1.9 aperture with a focal length, 26 millimeter sensor, a 13 megapixel ultra wide, and that aperture rating is an f2.2. And it basically can record in 4K with Ultra HD 60 frames per second. 13 megapixel selfie shooter, for those who want to know. Both devices are IP67 water and dust resistant. They both have in-display fingerprint sensor and facial recognition unlock, but the Pixel 8a has the face unlock that can be used as security biometrics for things like banking apps and things of that nature. So with that, my specific model of the Pixel 8a supports Dish's native 5G, so it does connect to N70. For those who want to know, there's actually two different sub-6 versions. One does not support Dish's connectivity, but it is what it is. So that's just pretty much like the specs out of the way. Experience-wise, the Pixel 8a is my daily driver device. It is the one that I enjoy using. Stock Android, couldn't be happier at all. The thing is that the Galaxy A53 tends to show that it is a beast of a mid-ranger, seeing that it can keep up with my Pixel 8a. And I'm not talking about fluidity of the software in itself. I'm talking about the support. Fluidity wise, the Pixel 8a is definitely going to dominate the Galaxy A53. Obviously a newer chip with a better build at 4 nanometers versus 5 nanometers. And, you know, overall, even though both of them are kind of Exynos based, the Exynos 1280 has pretty much lived out its age. It continues to just get a little bit janky here and there with heavy usage, light usage, like, you know, doing social media and not having a bunch of apps in background, and it will be just fine. Whereas on my Pixel 8a, I can have, you know, a bunch of apps in background and it will smoothly go along. I haven't really had any stutter, jank, or anything like that. Because I live in a very hot city, both phones do get warm outside when used, but indoor at room temperature, when using these devices, the Galaxy A53 is the one that tends to get used with moderate usage. It gets pretty hot, or warm. Let me just put it that way. It gets pretty warm. As the Pixel 8a, it stays fine. It doesn't overheat, doesn't heat up. I don't feel any warmth or anything like that. So that's always good. And that's for the way that I use the phone myself. They both have great sounding audio. I would say that when recording video, though, the Galaxy A53 has better microphones and audio recording than the Pixel 8a does. In case you're a content creator, you'll probably get better sounds out of the Galaxy A53. But the Pixel 8a video recording is a heck of a lot smoother. With the A53, it gets a bit choppy and janky. With that being said, both these devices are pretty good. Obviously, one is older than the other, but this is just, you know, a quick comparison. Let you guys know what I think about both these devices, and they both get thumbs up in my book. But what are your guys' thoughts? Let me know.